people coming up and giving me comments and, oh, hey, what about this or what about this? Like, I love talking through that stuff, so I appreciate everyone giving comments and thoughts and feedback. And yeah, I just appreciate you guys sitting here. You don't have much of a choice. You don't get to pick who's up here, but I appreciate you guys sitting here and engaging with me. Next week will be our last class entirely, but Jake will be teaching, and he'll be continuing the study of David's responses. But we're going to kick it off today with a study of just that, David's responses. But what we're going to do today is going to be a little unique. It's going to be a little different than how we've done most of these classes leading up to this. And I will ask Luke, if you don't mind, would you be willing to run a mic? Sorry. Dave's got one too. So we got mics all over. So we're going to do this a little differently. We're going to look at David's responses. If some of you have been kind of in class with me before, you know I really love like talking and just exploring ideas. And we're going to do that today with the Psalms. So one thing that's really interesting, we're gonna dig through the life of David in a couple emotional categories, and how he kind of responded to certain things that happened to him. The three kind of main categories we're going to look at is adversity and survival. We know he was on the run a lot, right? People were chasing him, things like that. How did he handle that adversity? What was going on in the mind and in the heart of David? And then David also had a ton of victory. A lot of stuff went really, really well for him, right? So how did he handle that? How did he balance pride, having confidence versus being the Lord's anointed, and who gets the credit and things like that? And then finally, as we all know, we're gonna look at sin and repentance. We know that David made some pretty horrible mistakes. But the key thing about David is how he kind of worked through those, moved past them. And there's a lot of stuff that we can learn and apply in our own lives. So today is going to be a little different. It's going to be a lot of reading. So I encourage you to get your Bibles out. We're going to do a lot of reading and some meditating kind of on some of the Psalms and how they connect directly with some of the narratives in the book of Samuel. So I would encourage you to get your Bibles out, have your comments ready, please. I encourage them. But I will ask one thing. We're going to do a little bit of like what I like to call an emotional scavenger hunt in the Bible. So I'm going to present a scenario, narrative from Samuel, and we're going to talk through it. And before you cheat, don't cheat and go to the Psalms. Don't try to find it, because I know some of you might have done something like this or a study like this. But first, let's just let the narrative sit. Let's kind of think through what our thought process would be, right? How would we think about this? How would we talk to God in our moments of adversity and victory and sin and repentance? Robert Alter, he suggests a study like this through the book of Samuel, through the lens of the Psalms, and he compares it to looking at a weather-beaten fortress. So 1st and 2nd Samuel is the stone walls that he builds up, right? It's the political maneuvers, the battle, the outward strength. But Psalms are the inner chamber of that fortress, where we see sometimes the cold, we see the fear, and we see this flickering lamp of prayer that reveal the true condition of the man living within. I love this analogy because how true is that, right? Like Samuel it's cinematic, right? We've talked about it. It's adventurous. But Psalms, it's insightful. It's his heart. It's vulnerable. And I think what's interesting about these is honestly, once we go through this, I think you'll see that really these two should not be separated. How many times have you read a story like David killing Goliath, or even the Bathsheba narrative that we're going to look at, and you've thought, man, what in the world was going through his head? Has anyone ever thought that? Yeah. Well, guess what? We don't have to wonder because it's written down for us in the Psalms. We can get this glimpse into what is going on in David's mind and in his heart and his relationship with God. So we're going to dive right in. Open your Bibles to 1 Samuel chapter 21. So we're gonna breeze through a little quick, but we're gonna read through these couple narratives here, starting with David and the holy bread, which I don't believe we've looked at in depth, probably because it's in 1 Samuel, but I think this one's important. So I'm going to start reading in verse 1 of chapter 21 of 1 Samuel. Then David came to Nob, to Ahimelech the priest, and Ahimelech came to meet David, trembling, and said to him, "Why are you alone, and no one with you?" And David said to Ahimelech the priest, "The king has charged me with a matter and said to me, 'Let no one know anything of the matter about which I send you, and with which I have charged you. I have made an appointment with the young men for such and such a place.'" Now keep in mind, David's on the run. He's running away from Saul right now. "Now then, what do you have on hand? Give me 5 loaves of bread, or whatever is here." And the priest answered David, "I have no common bread on hand, but there is only holy bread, if the young men have kept themselves from women." And David answered the priest, "Truly, women have been kept from us always, and when I go on an expedition, the vessels of the young men are holy, even when it is an ordinary journey. How much more today will their vessels be holy?" So the priest gave him the holy bread, for there was no bread there but the bread of the presence, which is removed from them before the Lord, to be replaced by hot bread on the day it is taken away. Now a certain man of the servants of Saul was there that day, detained before the Lord, and his name was Doeg the Edomite, the chief of Saul's herdsmen. Then David said to Ahimelech, "Then have you not a spear or sword at hand? For I have brought neither my sword nor my weapons with me, because the king's business required haste." And the priest said, "The sword of Goliath, the Philistine, whom you struck down in the valley of Elah, behold, it is here wrapped in a cloth behind the ephod. If you will take that, take it, for there is none like that here, none but that here." And David said, "There's none like that. Give it to me." So then we're going to fast forward a little bit. So he flees to Gath. He's on the run. And then we get this brief, in chapter 22, this brief little insight into what's going on with David. He continues running. We had the incident we talked about with the drooling madman, where he pretends to be drooling and crazy, and they kick him out. And then where does he go? Picking up in verse 1 of chapter 22. "David departed from there and escaped to the cave of Adullam. And when his brothers and all his father's house heard it, they went down there to him. And everyone who was in distress, and everyone who was in debt, and everyone who was bitter in soul gathered to him. And he became commander over them. And there were with him about 400 men." What a band of misfits, huh? I think that is so interesting. We're gonna keep going. The next little section I want to read through is starting in verse 6. "Now Saul heard that David was discovered, and the men who were with him. Saul was sitting at Gibeah under the tamarisk tree on the height, with his spear in his hand, and all the servants were standing about him. And Saul said to his servants who stood about him, 'Hear now, people of Benjamin, will the son of Jesse give every one of you fields and vineyards? Will he make you all commanders of thousands and commanders of hundreds, that all you have conspired against me? No one discloses to me where my son makes a covenant with the son of Jesse. None of you is sorry for me or discloses to me that my son has stirred up my servant against me to lie in wait at this day.' Then Doeg the Edomite, who stood by the servants of Saul, said, 'I saw the son of Jesse coming to Nob to Ahimelech, the son of Ahitub, and he inquired of the Lord for him, and gave him provisions, and gave him the sword of Goliath the Philistine.' Then the king sent to summon Ahimelech the priest, the son of Ahitub, and all his father's house, and the priests who were at Nob, and all of them came to the king. And Saul said, 'Hear now, son of Ahitub.' And he answered, 'Here I am, my lord.' And Saul said to him, 'Why have you conspired against me, you and the son of Jesse, in that you have given him bread and a sword, and have inquired of God for him, so that he has risen against me to lie in wait as at this day?' Then Ahimelech answered the king, 'And who among all your servants is so faithful as David, who is the king's son-in-law and captain over your bodyguard and honored in your house?'" He's saying, "Can I not trust David? You put him into this position of power. Is today the first time that I've inquired of God for him? No, I do this all the time. I talk to God for David." "No, let not the king impute anything to his servant or to all my house the house of my father, for your servant has known nothing of all this, much or little. And the king said, you shall surely die, Ahimelech, you and all your father's house. And the king said to the guard who stood about him, turn and kill the priests of the Lord, because their hand is also with David. And they knew that he fled and did not disclose it to me. But the servants of the king would not put their hand out to strike the priests of the Lord. Then the king said to Doeg, you turn and strike the priests. And Doeg the Edomite turned and struck down the priests, and he killed on that day 85 persons who wore the linen ephod. And Nob, the city of priests, he put to sword, both man and woman, child and infant, ox, donkey, and sheep he put to the sword. Okay, we're going to stop right there. I know that was a lot. Thanks for bearing with me. There's a lot to process there. There's three main things that happen in this narrative, right? First, we have this scene where David's with the priests. He's talking to him. The priest doesn't know any better, right? He even says later to Saul, you put him in this place. He's chief of your guards. Like, he's your son-in-law, for goodness sakes, right? But yet, David's on the run. So we get this little side note about David kind of running away. He gets the sword, he gets the bread of the presence, he gets what he can get, and then he runs and takes refuge in this cave, not cafe. That would be interesting. And he gathers this band of malcontents, right? Anyone who has a debt or these people, there's got to be some like Christology type parallel here to this crew that he's gathering, but we don't have time to get into that. I just think it's interesting the type of people that David is gathering under him. So let's pause right there before we get to the slaughter of the priests. You're David. You're running. You're kind of doing some espionage. You're talking to the priests. And then you run away. You know David's after you, so you're like, man, I got to get out of here. You get to this cave. What are you thinking? This is intro over, 13 minutes, not bad. So what are people's thoughts? What are we thinking? What would you be thinking? You were in his shoes. Scared? I heard someone say scared. Yeah, definitely. Scared, yeah. Yeah, John?
I think desperation. I mean, it's always fascinating to me. He takes the sword of Goliath, which always sounds too big to fight with anyway. But where does he go with that? He goes to Goliath's hometown. Yeah. Right. I mean, like, how desperate do you have to be to go back to that place? Totally. And then he ends up, acting out of his mind. Ends up in a cave. I mean, the only word that comes to my mind is just desperation.
He's grasping at straws. Yeah, he's desperate. I love the irony of him taking Goliath's sword and then going and killing Philistines with it later on when he's a mercenary. But yeah, absolutely. At this point in time, he's desperate. He's running, and he ends up at this cave. We're given in Samuel, he tells us that, hey, guess what? The sons of Jesse, everyone heard about this. They went to him. So there might have been some eventual comfort that came. What else? Any other thoughts? Yeah. He's frantic. Yeah, he's all over the map. He's like, oh, well, maybe I'll go to Gath and, oh, that's not working. They're going to kill me. So then he pretends to be crazy and he runs off to yeah, absolutely. He's frantic. Any other thoughts? Okay. Oh, yeah, Larry. Yeah. Yeah, he's not thinking about the consequences, totally. He lies to the priest, says he's on this journey for Saul. He's not. He's running from him. Do you think David knew that he was taking advantage of Ahimelech? Probably. Even if you can put that aside, was he lying about the bread of the presence and that they were suitable to take it? I don't know. Maybe. Yeah, absolutely. Lack of consequences, especially considering everything that Saul has done up to this point, right? Saul is crazy. Yeah, Darla.
It doesn't seem like he's trusting in God very much.
Doesn't seem like he's trusting in God. Yeah. Who's he trusting in? Not God himself. Yeah, absolutely. Okay, let's turn over to Psalms chapter 57. Let's get some insight into what David was thinking at this moment. There's two Psalms. There might be more, but there's two that I was kind of debating between. Psalms 57. There's also Psalms 142 that are specifically kind of connected to this account. I also want to mention we've been trained in our Bibles when we read the New Testament. You know, when you go to a chapter and it says like, oh, Jesus turned over the tables. Is that the Bible? The little like snippet? It's like, hey, here's a little title. We've kind of been trained that no, that was added, right? Psalms are a little different, and I want to point this out. If you turn over to Psalms 57, you have a little title, right? Mine says, "Let your glory be over all the earth." Maybe yours says something similar. Under that, though, we have this little snippet. To the choir master, according to Do Not Destroy, a miktam of David, when he fled from Saul in the cave. Does everyone see that? One thing that's super cool about these is like that is actual Hebrew. Like that is in the Hebrew text. It was likely added by the Masoretes, but I think it's important to know that like that's a little different than when we're reading the New Testament and we sometimes just kind of gloss over these things. The reason it's different and the reason it has significance is because people who have worshiped God for thousands of years have worshiped God with this same psalm, thinking about these same things that we're about to think through. I think that is super cool. All right, so let's read it. Psalms chapter 57. Be merciful to me, O God. Be merciful to me, for in you my soul takes refuge. In the shadow of your wings I will take refuge, till the storms of destruction pass by. I cry out to God Most High, to God who fulfills his purpose for me. He will send from heaven and save me. He will put to shame him who tramples me. God will send out his steadfast love and his faithfulness. My soul is in the midst of lions. I lie down amid fiery beasts. The child of man whose teeth are spears and arrows, whose tongues are sharp swords. Be exalted, O God, above the heavens. Let your glory be over all the earth. They set a net for my steps. My soul was bowed down. They dug a pit in my way, but they have fallen into it themselves. My heart is steadfast, O God. My heart is steadfast. I will sing and make melody. Awake, my glory. Awake, O harp and lyre. I will awake the dawn. I will give thanks to you, O Lord, among the peoples. I will sing praises to you among the nations. For your steadfast love is great to the heavens, your faithfulness to the clouds. Be exalted, O God, above the heavens. Let your glory be over all the earth. All right, what are people's thoughts? Yep, we got one up here. We might have to have Dave and Brandon sit on the front rows.
Well, it just now dawned in my head that if I was David, I would feel some measure of shame that I am trying in my flesh. I want to do it my way instead of just stopping and saying, God, please help me and give me direction and guidance and look to him. I mean, he's human. So yeah. I would feel shame.
Yeah, I think definitely there's some shame. I think we'll see that too in a little bit when we look at the next psalm with the priest. But yeah, I think it's interesting, right? We always say, David's a man after God's own heart, right? We kind of that's just like what we say. But I mean, this is why he's made mistakes, and I mean, you see that through the psalm, the way it starts off. He's in despair. He's distressed, right? And then he finally gets to the point where he's like, well, you know what, though? God is going to be my salvation, right? God is going to make this all work out for me. In his life, it will get worse than this moment in this psalm. But continually, we see that. The point is that David had a relationship with God. I'm not saying we don't have any psalms or that there were never any psalms of Saul, but definitely when you think about the psalms, you don't think about Saul. You think about David because there were so many associated with him. Yeah, any other thoughts? Okay, we're going to keep going. I told you, is there one? I'm sorry. Yeah, Richard. Yeah, go ahead.
I was just going to say, I don't know it's so much shame. I mean, David has done nothing to deserve this. God anointed him as king. If anything, there's a humility about him that he doesn't usurp a throne from a man that has been, where the kingdom has been ripped away from him. I mean, it's on his own volition that he doesn't take Saul out, and he probably could have done that. But there's an injustice about him being chased and pursued for no cause. I mean, he'd been honorable to the king. He'd served him well. He went on many missions that the king had sent him out. He'd become a warrior and a hero. It's Saul that's got the problem.
Yeah.
And chases him, and he finds himself among the Philistines, acting like a crazy man, being attacked. And so there's got to be some sense of what's going on here.
Yeah.
I've done everything right, and here I am. Now, yeah, and there is the Ahimelech thing here.
Yeah.
And later on there's going to be the Bathsheba thing, but he's done a lot of really good things.
Yeah.
And now it's unjust, and so he's got to be wondering what exactly is going on here. And because what you'll see, when you look at these lament psalms, you see this ebb and flow. He'll be on super heights where things are where he sounds like he's way up there on the mountaintop, and then you'll see him when he's way down in the pit.
Yeah.
And praying for God's mercies and saying, God, you've seen my tears. You've heard my groanings. You've seen the adjustments. These guys are laying nets for me. They're putting pits out there for me, and so there's got to be, the anxiousness had to be there of what exactly is happening here.
Yeah, definitely. I think there's no question that he was morally in the right. Does that mean that there's not consequences for his actions, like Larry was saying? No, absolutely not. But Saul, he was like this forever, right? You remember when David was playing for him and then he threw stuff at him, tried to kill him, and then chased him to his house? Like there's Psalms for almost all of these events, by the way. Go check it out. There's so many. And then later on, Saul says, was I supposed to know that my son swore an oath to this guy, right? Like Saul is clearly the one that's losing his marbles, and David is suffering some of the consequences. But I do think there is probably some aspects of shame. And one of the things I love about this is that shame might be an emotion that jumps out to you, or it might be something that maybe David starts with, but then where does he end? Does he end in shame? No, he ends in, hey, no, God has vindicated me. God will deliver me. God will deliver us. They've set out nets for me, but he has made it right. So yeah, definitely. There's all these emotions that you might start with, and then it leads to somewhere else. But yeah, great point. Yeah.
So we do say that David is a man after God's own heart. That's what it says, but we have to remember that he's still a man and he still makes mistakes. And as you're going through his Psalms, also, there's places where he was farthest from God where he didn't write any. Where he did write them is where he was searching for God. Did he make mistakes? Oh, yeah. But just like when he was going to kill the fool, was that Nabal? He had somebody bring him to his senses. And I think that's what it was. And even when, with the thing with Bathsheba, when someone came to him and said, this is the story, this is you. And so I think that after God's own heart is that willingness to see when he's done wrong, and to change. And so did he make a mistake? Yeah. But did he seek God? Yes.
Yeah.
He tried to do the right thing, just like we try to do the right thing. But does that happen every single day? No.
Yeah, absolutely.
We try to do the right thing every day, but we don't always do the right thing. And I think that all this period of running, and why it had to last so long, is because he needed to learn. He had lessons he needed to learn, and he wasn't there yet. He wasn't the king that God wanted him to be yet, and he had a lot of lessons to learn. But he still honored God in that he didn't kill Saul, because that was God's anointed. He still had to honor God first.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, great comments. I think my head immediately went to when you said Nabal, and maybe I'm wrong. I saw John flip some pages, so maybe you can answer. But did Nabal's wife have a psalm that she said before she went and talked to David? I can't remember. For some reason, that popped up in my head. That would be interesting. But anyways, great point. Yeah, it's a process. It's a development that David goes through. I've got to laugh a little bit because I told my wife, I was like, oh, I'll get through probably like 5 Psalms, and we are barely through one. So we're going to keep moving. But yeah, I really appreciate the discussion here. One thing that keeps coming up, and I think it was set off by this comment about consequences, is David's mistake here. And I think to Richard's point, sure, maybe there's some consequences to his actions. Was it a mistake? Maybe, maybe not. But Ahimelech talked to God on David's behalf. And so God is clearly with David throughout this time. And that is something to remember, that this is something where, yes, I think God has things that he wants David to learn. But this critical thing about the priest at Nob, let's see what David has to say about this, consequence or this mistake of his actions, right? So let's go to Psalms 52 real quick. All right, I'm going to jump in. To the choir master, a maskil of David, when Doeg the Edomite came and told Saul, David has come to the house of Ahimelech. Well, would you look at that? How convenient. Why do you boast of evil, O mighty man? The steadfast love of God endures all the day. Your tongue plots destruction. Like a sharp razor, you worker of deceit. You love evil more than good, and lying more than speaking what is right. You love all words that devour, O deceitful tongue. But God will break you down forever. He will snatch and tear you from your tent. He will uproot you from the land of the living. The righteous shall see and fear, and shall laugh at him, saying, see this man who would not make God his refuge, but trusted in the abundance of his riches and sought refuge in his own destruction. But I am like a green olive tree in the house of God. I trust in the steadfast love of God forever and ever. I will thank you forever because you have done it. I will wait for your name, for it is good in the presence of the godly. So what's David's response to what's the going-ons of Doeg as he goes to talk to Saul and kind of reveals all this? I hear whispers. Thoughts? Yeah. Confidence, yeah. A little bit of righteous indignation, it seems like. He's ready to go. He's ready to go take care of business. So yeah, definitely doesn't see, this one, in contrast, remember, maybe there was some shame and we get somewhere. This one doesn't seem like shame. This one seems like, hey, God's going to settle this, and I'm going to be available to him as an instrument in order to do so. One thing that's really interesting here, and you probably have a footnote, but in verse 8, when David says, but I am like a green olive tree, you probably have a footnote to Jeremiah. When Jeremiah is going through his prophecy and condemning and saying, God set you up to be a green olive tree. But alas, we know what happens. David here is saying, he is aligned with God. God is on my side. And you better watch out. Any other thoughts on this? We're going to try to squeeze in one more. Any other thoughts on this before we close out this whole narrative? Okay. Would you guys rather, I'm going to let you pick. This doesn't happen very often. Would you guys rather talk about David's deliverance from Saul, his victories, his deliverance from Saul, or the Bathsheba narrative and the learnings from the Bathsheba narrative? Show of hands. Saul's deliverance from Saul? Okay, hands down. Bathsheba narrative? Oh, man. All right, deliverance from Saul it is. I'm glad. Everyone's probably read the Bathsheba one anyway. So. Awesome. All right. So we're going to be in 2 Samuel 8 and 22. We're going to read through these real quick. We're probably not going to read all of them. But starting in 2 Samuel, I'm sorry. Those are flipped. Let's start in 1 Samuel chapter 22. That's not right. I totally messed up my... All right, sorry, scratch that. 2 Samuel chapter 8, just keeping you on your toes. This choose your own adventure version of class is not working. All right, here we go. So in 2 Samuel chapter 8, we have this string of, this is after he's anointed, right? He's established his kind of Jerusalem as his capital. Things are kind of coming together. And then we get this string of victories for David in chapter 8. And I'm just going to read a snippet of these, starting in verse 1. After this, David defeated the Philistines and subdued them. And David took Metheg-ammah out of the hand of the Philistines, and he defeated Moab, and he measured them with a line, making them lie down on the ground. 2 lines he measured to be put to death, and 1 full line to be spared. And the Moabites became servants to David and brought tribute. Jake already kind of went through this and kind of what that means, and as he's building his empire, right, he's gathering all these people. Jumping down to verse 13, and David made a name for himself when he returned from striking down 18,000 Edomites in the Valley of Salt, and he put garrisons at Edom. Throughout all Edom he put garrisons, and all the Edomites became David's servants. And the Lord gave David victory, to David wherever he went. What's interesting about this is, so obviously this is not like one day that this happens. This is over the course of a long period of time. But this is a time where David's empire is really growing and really strengthening. After, we'll see in a second, after he is delivered from the hand of Saul and all of that gets wrapped up. Let's jump over there real quick, actually. I think that's supposed to say 2 Samuel 22, not 1 Samuel. Yep, perfect. So 2 Samuel 22. We're not going to read all this, but this is essentially a psalm, and we'll see a lot of similarities between this and the psalm that we're going to look at, Psalm 18. But don't look ahead. So this is after, we're getting towards the end of David's life, and finally the last of Saul's line has kind of, he's sure that Saul's not going to come back and get him through his children. In verse 1 of 22, and David spoke to the Lord the words of this song on the day when the Lord delivered him from the hand of all of his enemies and from the hand of Saul. He said, "The Lord is my rock and my fortress, my deliverer, my God, my rock in whom I take refuge, my shield and the horn of my salvation, my stronghold and my refuge, my Savior. You save me from violence." I'm going to pause there. We're gonna try to kind of join these two together. It's not super clear exactly when this was. It's clear that this was a psalm that was in the response to a state of mind or a state of heart that David found himself after things were maybe slowing down. God delivered him from all of his enemies, right? Which obviously, as we read through Samuel, that's an ongoing thing. That's years and years and years of God delivering him. But in the moment of all of these victories, as he's building his empire in chapter 8, and then even bleeding through into 22, we're given this psalm, Psalm chapter 18, and Psalm 60. Man, I totally messed up my slides. I'm just gonna stay here. Psalm chapter 18. So this is in response to, in verse 1, it says, "To the choir master, Psalm of David, the servant of the Lord, who addressed the words of this song to the Lord on the day when the Lord delivered him from the hand of all of his enemies and from the hand of Saul." So this is in corresponding with David's deliverance psalm. Very similar. If you read them side by side, I highly recommend. There's a lot of similarities. "I love you, O Lord, my strength. The Lord is my rock and my fortress and my deliverer. My God, my rock in whom I take refuge, my shield and the horn of my salvation, my stronghold." That's that's word for word what we just read. "I will call upon the Lord, who is worthy to be praised, and I am saved from my enemies. The cords of death encompassed me, the torrents of destruction assailed me, the cords of Sheol entangled me, the snares of death confronted me. In my distress I called upon the Lord. To my God I cried for help. From his temple he heard my voice, and my cry to him reached his ear. Then the earth reeled and rocked, the foundations Also of the mountains trembled and quaked because he was angry. Smoke went up from his nostrils, and devouring fire from his mouth. Glowing coals flamed forth from him. He bowed the heavens and came down. Thick darkness was under his feet. He rode on a cherub and flew. He came swiftly on the wings of the wind. He made darkness his covering, his canopy around him. Thick clouds, dark with water. Out of the brightness before him, hailstones of coal and fire broke through the clouds. The Lord also thundered in the heavens, and the Most High uttered his voice, hailstones and coals of fire. And he sent out his arrows and scattered them. He flashed forth lightnings and routed them. Then the channels of the sea were seen, and the foundations of the world were laid bare at your rebuke, O Lord, at the blast of the breath of your nostril. I want to pause there. This whole image is David crying out to God, and where is God at when he hears him? He's at his temple. There is some crazy imagery going on. You remember when we talked last week about Mount Sinai and God coming to Mount Sinai and his presence being over the cloud of Mount Sinai? David is saying, you came to my rescue in that same way. It's common, you might have heard the term theophany, right? This is God coming to earth. And guess what? Everybody knows it. There's thunder. The mountains are quaking. You came to earth to deliver me. And that's essentially what David is saying here in this psalm as he almost breathes a sigh of relief in 2 Samuel when he's finally delivered from the hand of his enemies and Saul, which we know took a long period of time. David is realizing that, hey, this was an event. This was a spiritual event for me and God. God was here with me. Obviously, God was here with all of the Israelites. But the imagery there, it's undeniable. You can't separate them. It's this visual manifestation. I spoke to you and you heard me at heaven, but guess what? God says, I'm coming down there. It's this visual representation of God on earth, right? Okay, let's look at the other psalm, Psalm chapter 60. Okay, so and this is I did these a little backwards, apologies, but this corresponds with 2 Samuel chapter 8. When we get that account of David's victories and all the people the slaves and servants that he made under him. Starting off in Psalm 60, it says, to the choir master according to Shushan Eduth, a miktam of David for instruction, when he strove with Aram Naharaim and with Aram Zobah, and when Joab on his return struck down 12,000 in Edom in the valley of Salt. I mean, don't let it be lost on you. Jake talked about this 2 weeks ago, I think. You remember Joab had to tell David, hey, get over here, because I'm about to take this and people are going to give me credit. And so don't let that be lost on you in the emotions that you're processing as we read through this. Oh God, you have rejected us, broken our defenses. You have been angry. Oh, restore us. You have made the land quake. You have torn it open. Repair its breaches, for its totters. You have made your people see hard things. You have given us wine to drink that made us stagger. You have set up a banner for those who fear you, for they may flee to it from the bow. That your beloved ones may be delivered. Give us salvation by your right hand and answer us. God has spoken in his holiness. With exultation I will divide up Shechem and portion out the vale of Succoth. Gilead is mine. Manasseh is mine. Ephraim is my helmet. Judah is my scepter. Moab is my wash basin. Upon Edom I cast my shoe. Over Philistia I shout in triumph. Who will bring me to the fortified city? Who will lead me to Edom? Have you not rejected us, O God? You do not go forth, O God, with our armies. O grant us help against the foe. For vain is the salvation of man. With God we shall do valiantly. It is he who will tread down our foes. I think that is so interesting in the context of Joab and his relationship with David. Perhaps David wasn't so much concerned about the credit himself. As we go through this psalm, we don't see David saying, oh, I'm going to take Gilead. Manasseh's mine. I'm going to get all these things, right? David is thinking a little bit bigger, it seems, as we go through this psalm. God is the one that gets the credit. So sure, maybe there was some political value in David coming and being there with Joab, but the point is that David, I think it was brought up earlier that David has to go through this growing process. I think it's working. As we see David's deliverance in these two Psalms, I think he is understanding that, hey, Mount Sinai and all that stuff that we went through in the Exodus, that's not just like this distant thing to David. It's a very real thing. God is coming down and is partaking. And who gets the credit? Not David. And David knows that. He says that. God is the one that gets the credit. We're just about at time. I want to really nail this home in verse 18, or excuse me, back in Psalm 18, in verse 10. This is where we're going to close out. I'm sorry, it's in verse 47. Apologies. So Psalm 18, 47. This whole psalm is amazing. We only read like the first 12 verses of it, but in verse 47, we get this really interesting section. Starting in verse 47, the Lord lives, and blessed be my rock, and exalted be the God of my salvation, the God who gave me vengeance and subdued peoples under me, who rescued me from enemies. Yes, you exalted me above those who rose against me. You delivered me from the man of violence. For this I will praise you, O Lord, among the nations, and sing your name. Great salvation he brings to his king, and shows steadfast love to his anointed, to David and his offspring forever. One thing that's interesting, there's a scholar that mentions this. Her name's Aubrey Buster, that points out that this, in the Psalms, is the only section where we have this phrase, Yahweh or God is alive, in the Psalms. It's very often that you'll see like, oh, surely as Yahweh lives, something will happen, kind of this like oath formula. But this is the only instance that David brings up right here where he says, hey, God is active. And I think when you read this in the context of the theophany that we saw and the fact that God is living and God came down, he heard David's plea and he came down to earth and everyone noticed, God is saying, hey, Yahweh, you live with us. Yahweh is alive and he will deliver. All right, awesome. That's it. Definitely go through the Psalms in this way. It is a crazy experience. I highly encourage it. Thank you for your attention, and next week you'll have Jake for one last class.